Hi friends, I'm going to show you how to make this cute little witch's hat. What you need are a color for the hat, a color for the band, and a color for the buckle. You'll also need scissors, a stitch marker. I use a crochet needle. It's basically like a regular needle, but it's a little blunt. Some stuffing and a crochet hook. I'm using 4.5 millimeter. You're going to start off with a magic circle. The way I do it is I wrap it around these two fingers twice. And I go under the first, grab the second, pull it through, rotate my hook 180 degrees, and then I'm going to grab this back yarn. And I'm going to pull through the loop that I just made on my hook. The point of the magic circle is to be able to close after you're done working in it. But I'm gonna have it stay pretty open while I'm working in it. My first row is going to be 3 single crochets. I'm going to go through the magic circle, wrap around, pull through, wrap around, pull through 2. So I'm going to do that 2 more times. The next row, I'm going to do 3 increases for a total of 6 stitches. And if you don't know what that means, it means 2 single crochets into 1 stitch from the previous row. And things can get a little tight here just because you're starting out at the point of the hat. So just don't pull super tight. For the third row or the third round, I'm just going to do 6 single crochets. For the fourth row, I'm going to alternate between single crochets and increases. This round will have a total of 9 stitches. Row 5 will just be 9 single stitches all the way around. Now, I like to take a second here and flip it inside out. I tie the tail. I like to tie a little knot just to keep it secure. Some people tuck it in, some people leave it alone. I'm not going to actually tuck the tail in just because it'll be where the stuffing is. Now row 6 will be 2 single crochets with an increase. It'll have a total of 12 stitches. Now from here on out, I'm just going to have the instructions on the top for you. Now for the next row, I'm just going to do a slip stitch. That just means inserting it and then pulling it through both loops. For the rest of the row, I'm going to do the back loop only. It's going to be 3 single crochets with a decrease. By decrease, I mean you're going to make 2 stitches become 1. So what you would do is insert your hook into 1 stitch, wrap the running yarn around, pull it through, and then insert your hook into the next stitch, wrap your running yarn, pull it through. You should have 3 on your hook, and then wrap the running yarn again and pull through all 3. The next round will not be back loop only, it'll be just like normal. You'll alternate between a single crochet and 1 decrease, and you should end up with 16 stitches. At this point, I will stuff the hat. And I like to do just a little bit of stuffing at a time to try to make sure I get the right shape that I want to. The last row will be 8 decreases. The way I sew it closed, I go ahead and just pull the yarn through, grab one of my yarn needles, and I am just going to put it through each of those 8 decreases that I had just made, the 8 stitches. And then you should just be able to pull it tight. And to secure it, I just find another loop of yarn and make a little knot there. I'll insert it into the bottom and have it come out somewhere on the side to hide the tail. Pull tight and cut. So that's the top of the hat. To get started with the brim, I'm going to make a slip knot. I'm going to take it off the hook, and then those 30 back loop only stitches, I'm going to make my next row on the front loop. So I'm going to put the loop back on my hook. I'm going to pull it through and chain 1 to secure it. Then I'm going to start with 5 single crochets with 1 increase. And in those 30 stitches, you'll end up with 35. It was a little difficult to get started because I might have got it a little too tight, but just be patient and just kind of work it in. For the second row of the brim, I'm going to do 6 singles and 1 increase for a total of 40 stitches. This time I'm going to put it in the whole stitch, not just the front loop or just the back loop. For the third row, I'm going to start increasing it by 8 stitches each time. I'll be doing 4 singles and 1 increase for a total of 48 stitches. I'm going to end up making 7 rows for the brim. After the last row, you should have 80 stitches, and I'm just going to slip stitch and tie off. And with the tail, you can do it a couple of ways. The way I did it was I just kind of threaded it through to get to the middle of the hat. You could just thread it through the brim just to tuck it in, but I wanted to actually get to the middle of the hat and then hide it in the stuffing. So once I got to the middle, I just pulled it out through the side, pulled tight, and cut off. And then there's the hat. Now to get started with the band around the hat, I did a slip knot, then I chained 36 chains. Once I did that, I double checked to make sure that it was the right length. Depending on the size of the yarn you use, it may have to be more or less. So then I just skipped one chain and then started with 35 single crochets all the way back to the end. And once I got to the end, I wanted to keep a long tail to sew it in. I slip stitched and tied it off. So I'm going to take the shorter tail first. And I made that one the bottom of the band. And basically I just kind of placed it where I wanted it to be and pushed that through the middle of the hat, and I just left it sitting there for a second. And I take the longer of the two and I just picked one little strand of yarn and sewed it through. I took the rest of the band, wrapped it around, and then went back through the band. And then the way I did it, you could do it two different ways. You can just kind of sew it on as you go, but I kind of just picked a couple of spots, probably 5 or 6 different spots, and just went across the hat. But you could just go around it if you'd like. But I think just 5 or 6 stitches would do the trick. Once I felt like it was good and secure, I went straight to the middle, double knotted the two tails together, and then I tucked those into the stuffing. Alright, so the last thing you have to do is just put that buckle on the band. The way I did that was I grabbed my yarn, and I went in through the bottom and I pulled all the way through, but I left a tail. And I know that I did a really bad job of videoing this part, but I basically just went back and forth vertically. I think I did it 4 times. And on the 4th time, I kind of got a little tied up here, but on the 4th time, I went to the other side. The first hat I made, I did it just in a square, and I didn't like the way it turned out. So the second time I decided just to do the 2 vertical lines and then the 2 horizontal lines. So on the 4th time, I'm going to go to the bottom Now at the bottom, you do have to be careful about seeing the orange from the bottom side of the hat. It's gonna show, it might show a little bit depending on how you do it. It just depends on how much you want it. But then that last time, you put it straight to the middle, tie off, and you're gonna tuck in those tails. And then I just pull tight and cut. And that is your hat.